Welcome to this rainy Monday. We have a special program for you today. Here are the components of today's afternoon and early evening. At first, we're going to have a panel of 4 startups presenting, and they're part of the blockchain accelerator. And introducing them, we'll have Luke Kim talk about who they are, and they will tell you what they do, and they will also discuss how they're leveraging emerging technology, and if they have a social impact component to their offering. So let's go to the first part of the presentation and our program, which is going to be Luke talking about the startups, and then you can tell me when I should share the screen and which one in due time. But over to you, Luke.
Yeah, perfect.
You want to start with Luke?
It's very good to see everybody here this evening. Yes, Luke Kowalski and Luke Kim were both named Luke. So I was a student at Berkeley as well. I took some of these classes. Blockchain is a very exciting topic. It's probably the most exciting industry in the entire world right now. In short, blockchain has been explained to me as a cross between agreements and money. So think about fintech, financial use cases, and of course, agreements, smart contracts. So if we talk about money as well as agreements, well, that involves pretty much every societal system that we have, including international economies. And so blockchain is technically speaking those things, but philosophically speaking, deals with decentralization and centralization. So the idea between power being collected in one place or left to many different places. There's strengths and weaknesses to each side, but that's kind of an overview of blockchain itself. I don't want to ruin any surprises, so all the teams themselves will introduce themselves. But yeah, we'll have each party, each team go for about 5 minutes. They'll have slides ready for you, or just verbally go through their company with you. Each will discuss bullet points about who they are, what they build, why it's cool, as well as how they're tied to emerging tech, enabling tech, and disruption in society. And then cap off with how maybe some of you could get involved. Because at the end of the day, I was in your shoes not too long ago. As students, you're interested to find out where is the industry that will pay me the best, that will make me grow in the best way, that will get me the mentorship I need and the exposure I want. And so for you, you can actually gain opportunities to test things, to find internships, ambassador opportunities, all these kinds of things that maybe you didn't think about before. And I know many students who kind of rode the blockchain train and went around the world to conferences, to work on various projects. So yeah, the world is kind of your oyster. But to kick off, I want to start with Snowball. And I think Parul, I see you there. Parul is a friend of mine. He's a very, very good entrepreneur. Joshua, Arma as well, right there. Wave your hand if you can. Can you guys take us through your company, but also your story, and spare no details, kind of take us through the goods and the bads, and through your personal relationship as well.
Yeah, sure. So Snowball Money is a wealth generation platform where we believe that our mission is really centered around democratizing access for information for everyone, mainly financial information. And we believe we can do that through this new asset class, which is cryptocurrency. So that's really why this, as you can see, the head of the slides, access for everyone. And me and Peru met last summer. We both spoke at a conference here in Miami, where I'm currently at the moment in Miami. And yeah, we were able to hit it off. And from there, we teamed up in October formally, and then, been working ever since and getting ready to, help everyone globally, reach this new identity of what it means to be a crypto investor. Awesome. So if you go to the next slide. So this is the biggest, I think, most relevant problem that is worth talking about, that is in regards to social impact. Like, can you believe that 1.7 billion adults are without a bank account in 2020? This is a massive problem. One of our missions at Snowball is to help identify these people and give them access to basic things like internet and financial services. And one of the biggest problems with people that never had a bank account is, can you imagine, how do you pay for food? How do you exchange for goods. You know, in the history of the world, the bartering system was something that was very popular, and then we became more focused on adding value, which was a gold standard system. And then the International Monetary Fund was formed, which created fiat-based currency. And the difference between currency and money is, money is a store of value, where currency is a medium of exchange. So when you look at the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, everything is basically backed by credit or debt, and countries guarantee it through taxpayers. But at the same time, there's been a huge population, about 1/4 of the world almost, which is essentially went unrecognized. And almost 2 billion people not having a bank account, in today's world is kind of obscene. So that's one of the social impact problems we looked to solve. If you can continue.
Yeah.
So really, this is one of the best things to talk about, why you should say hello to Snowball Money. And the number one thing we believe is that we live in an era where people love choice. And without going into all the features real quick, I want to just first talk to you about, when is the last time you opened up an app and just invested into anything and let your money snowball? For millennials, a lot of the wealth transfer that's upon us is going to happen through millennials. And millennials are going to be responsible for a lot of money, for managing it, allocating it, and even with Gen Z, the next generation after millennials, dealing with it long term. And, for us, at Snowball, what we believe is that everyone should have the right to be their own bank. And being your own bank doesn't just mean that, oh, I know how to invest in crypto. It fundamentally means that you know how to save to invest. And a lot of people in the past in cryptocurrency, they jumped into the market not understanding how to invest. And we believe that one of the biggest problems that erupted was people were not able to understand their risk appetite. So that's one of the biggest things about being your own bank that's really, really important, is understanding it's a whole nother level of responsibility. So outside of being your own bank, we allow our users to access risk-adjusted portfolios that match to their risk appetite. So you can see here, we have everything from conservative to moderate to aggressive. So that's pretty much, the sentiment of Snowball Money is that, similar to like a Wealthfront for crypto, you can essentially, use our app, and within a 1, 2, 3 easy user experience, you're able to invest in a portfolio and hold that cryptocurrency asset for a long term. Now, the biggest thing about crypto is that it's 24/7. So that's one of the biggest things about Snowball, is that we give you access to 24/7 liquidity. And liquidity is really important, because have you ever tried to like withdraw money from your bank and you have money in your bank account, but you couldn't withdraw it? Maybe you hit your daily limit, for your credit card or debit card, or maybe you hit your withdrawal limit at the ATM. That's one of the things that is really the difference with cryptocurrency, is that you're able to actually, be in control, and be in control of your money, knowing that you're able to access the liquidity and cryptocurrency on demand. The third is being able to enjoy high yield portfolios. So we really focus on yield. Yield is generating interest. So like on average, a savings account may earn you up to 1% a month, 1% a year, I'm sorry. But when you look at like cryptocurrency, you get earned up to 10%, and on average 5% when you deal with, lending. And lending in cryptocurrency has become a huge thing. So decentralized finance, which is the space we're in, is a huge way to give people access these high yield returns through having a Snowball portfolio. One of the other aspects of this is being able to do real-time risk assessment. So one of the biggest problems with cryptocurrency is that because the market is volatile and it changes constantly, you never know when the risk could change. Something can happen, and I'll give you an example. MakerDAO recently lost liquidity, where they were like stable for a period of time, and then they had like about almost $4 million of collateral that wasn't able to be supported, and they needed help for the community. So the good thing is that it's decentralized and the community came together, and MakerDAO got through that tough time. The risk is that you never know if these problems will come up. So that's one of the biggest things that we really want to focus on, is being able to do real-time risk assessment. The last two really speak to each other, is financial freedom without borders. And that's one of the biggest things about cryptocurrency that I believe in, and at Snowball we believe in. The 1.7 billion people that don't have a bank account, they should be able to have financial freedom regardless of what country they live in. Some people never had an identity. Can you imagine never having an identity card or never having a way to verify who you are? this is one of the biggest problems of why people can't open a bank account even in America. There's homelessness, there's poverty, there's many issues. When we look at basic needs, being able to have access to your own, account shouldn't be one of them. So that's how we really help our users learn how to invest in a new asset class. Is really just through giving them a user experience or an app, and then also being able to be that support system through our technology for them long term.
So there's a lot in there, there's a lot of information jam-packed, and I think you went through it very quickly. For everybody here, Joshua is the technical lead, CTO at Snowball Money. And they recently won an award at Product Hunt, the Golden Kitty Award. And so that's no small deal. It was actually basically beating out big names, such as eToro in the blockchain space. And I think Parul, you're in the call as well. Do you mind unmuting yourself and just introducing yourself and coloring in some of the details as well before we move forward into Nugbase?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Joshua, well said. So exciting to have a business partner that is able to pitch better than you. So I get to rest my voice today. But since Luke has summoned me, it is such a pleasure to have the opportunity to share our vision and mission with you folks. We've been at this for some time, and fortunately we've had some success specifically regarding user adoption. We launched our product last year in July as a public beta as a centralized app, and have now decided to go decentralized. So I would urge all of you to please keep your ear out. We're about to do a public crowdfund on republic.co, and we may or may not be on TV in front of 200 million people on the 18th of April and 18th of May. So please keep your ear. If you want to get involved, you could download our app from the App Store and get onto the VIP waitlist. On that waitlist, please put that you're part of this Berkeley class, and we'll make sure you're the first to have our app. And instead of doing the talking, I'd like to actually just share a quick demo of the app itself in a 1-minute video that we've created.
No, that's perfect.
Okay, I'll go ahead and stop sharing to allow you to do so.
Thank you. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see your iPhone prototype screen.
Fantastic. So just a quick demo of what the UI UX looks like. Gone are the days where you have to wait every week, every month, every quarter, every year for annualized returns. When Josh said liquidity to the market, we're integrating with the several different protocols which will allow you to get paid in a real-time basis as well as find liquidity. So really excited to bring this product to you folks. If you folks want to get involved, I would certainly invite you to send an email to the letter P at snowball.money, and I'll send something out on the group chat. We have internship opportunities in various different areas. So thanks, guys.
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay,
we did have a question. If you guys could send a link, the team that just presented Snowball, using the chat for this meeting to folks who are attending. That was one of the questions, and people could perhaps go and bookmark your website and keep watching for that TV appearance.
Yeah, the best thing is that it's snowball.money.
Mm.
Right, perfect.
Okay, I see it input into the chat, so it is there. Luke, back to you.
Yeah, we're gonna have to move forward. Nugbase. So first off, can everyone in your team just briefly introduce yourselves, and then whoever's taking lead, whoever's best at pitching, you can take us through your slides.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, so I'm Andre Adele. I'm the lead developer founder at Nugbase. Our product is called Flowerpatch. It's a game. I think a couple of my team members maybe here. Let's see if they want to say hi.
Yeah, hi, I'm John Lustig. I'm a member of Nugbase as well, just an expert in cannabis, and along for the ride. good bunch of guys.
Oh, is that okay if I share my own screen and I'll do the clicking?
Okay, you prefer to do that? Okay, sure, no problem.
I'm also in the chat. My name's Bruno Gioli. My mic and webcam is a little wonky right now, so after this I'll just mute myself. But yeah, longtime friend of Andre's and John's, and have been on the project from the beginning. Helped with business stuff and marketing stuff, all that, and love gaming as well.
Okay. Andre, your screen is now live, so you're good to go.
Amazing. Yeah, I'll get started. So hello again, Flowerpatch. Yeah, so the idea here is that we're making collectible cards, collectible cannabis cards. So we're like digitizing strains of cannabis. And then also, you know, in the space, which is collectively called NFTs, non-fungible tokens, AKA crypto collectibles, you know, I think there's not really anything interesting in a collectible unless it has something that you can use it for. So what we're doing is trying to build the first cannabis game that actually treats cannabis with respect and approaches it from yeah, an angle of quality and accountability. So I will kind of quickly go through this. So this is some of our art that's been made by Duncan Hatch. He's an amazing artist. But anyway, so obviously the big idea is you actually can literally own your collectibles again. Breeding unique flower strains, and then you can earn money via Ethereum when people breed with your flowers. This is similar to the CryptoKitties model that Dapper Labs pioneered. And that's done into a peer-to-peer fashion. So like, it's not like we are a money transmitter of any kind. People pay each other directly doing this. Then another big idea is to gamify the cannabis dispensary experience. So like when you go to a dispensary, you know, you receive a bag. These dispensaries are often handling like 1,000 unique customers a day with a price point of $200 per customer or more. So these are high value customers who are very interested in the product. We can put physical cards directly into their bags, and these physical cards can be really quite high quality, similar to Pokemon cards, Magic the Gathering cards, playing cards. And then when a person goes home and opens their bag, they receive this card, and it's got, you know, first of all, it's a nice collectible card on its own, but then you can scan a QR code and receive a digital version of this card, which is then provably scarce and provably unique via the Ethereum blockchain. I'll go into a little bit more of like why NFTs are revolutionary. I think some of you guys probably already know. Another big idea is because there's this open ecosystem of collectibles that's being created, and a lot of these collectibles are really owned by their users, we can actually integrate collectibles from other people's projects. So for example, if we were to partner with CryptoKitties, then we could actually add CryptoKitties cats, which are another form of crypto collectible, directly into our world. And then maybe those cats help protect your flowers, you know, from pests or whatever else. And we're also, again, building the first cannabis game that approaches it from a place of quality, respect, spirituality, and addiction awareness. I think all of this is extremely important, and it's a crucial time in the cannabis culture to kind of revolutionize things. You know, legality is starting to hit, and I think it's no longer acceptable to either just have it be a bunch of like memes and rappers. It's no longer acceptable to just make like stoned Pac-Man and call it a day. It's no longer acceptable to ignore the health and spirituality and industrial uses of hemp and cannabis. And then it's also no longer acceptable to say, smoke all day, smoke as much as you want, you know, it's not going to impact your health. Like, that's irresponsible. So those are kind of our core values and the big ideas that we have here. Yeah, please, again, if you have any questions, stop me at any time. Why crypto collectibles? Like, why is this important? In the past, ownership and collectibles made a lot of sense. You know, like people would buy physical things like Magic the Gathering cards or Beanie Babies. Some of these items were pretty scarce and rare and ended up being worth a lot of money. And so people would collect them partially because they're cool, but partially because they think, you know, maybe there's a little bit of a future return on this if it's something that ends up being worth a lot of money, you know. And because they were physical objects that you literally owned, you could go on eBay or wherever you want and you can sell these items. But then kind of like the digital gaming revolution happened and all of that kind of got messed up. So people now have the experience where they can go to a game, literally buy items in that game, and then, a big gaming company decides that maybe somebody was botting on their account or something fishy happens, and they can just cancel that entire account. You lose everything that you paid for. You lose all your items. And those items are usually completely locked down to the game that you're playing as well. So there can't be any third-party markets. There can't be any real ownership. That's really what it comes down to, is crypto collectibles create a fairer world because people, once again, can literally own their items. And then, so Ethereum allows this technology called ERC 721, which again was pioneered by CryptoKitties and Dapper Labs. They call them NFTs. They create real ownership, and you can sell them, particularly on OpenSea. That's kind of my favorite partner for that. They've really done an incredible job. They were a great team. They're already highly integrated in like Opera browser and a variety of places. And the idea, again, is that we can't stop anybody from doing what they want to do with their collectibles. Additionally, digital collectibles allow for some new mechanics that were never really possible before in the traditional collectibles market. So for example, like there's some games out there that have kind of a form of dividends, almost in a sense, where your collectible over time produces other items or other objects. And those objects might be then sold to other players via free markets like OpenSea. So My Crypto Heroes kind of pioneered that model, where each of the heroes is worth a lot of money individually, often hundreds of dollars, but then it's capable of producing either kind of like off-chain copies or some derivative items that then can be sold. There's also mechanics, again, like breeding, kind of what I described. In our game, you have a flower card. You can then go to our game world, which is a shared multiplayer experience. You can plant that flower in the game world, and then other people that plant their flowers near you are able to breed with yours. This creates absolutely brand new strains that have never existed before. So, you might take a sour diesel and a blue dream, combine them together and get a sour dream. And then it would have unique stats, unique features, unique art, and again, fully really owned by you. Additionally, these collectibles can change over time. So we're seeing projects like Ethermon, where the more that you play with your Ethermon, kind of like Pokemons, they actually level up, become stronger, gain new abilities. This creates added value to collectibles that you already have and already exist. Because now that it's like somebody's put effort and time into it, it's got more abilities. So then when you go to sell it, people will be like, oh, this is an exceptionally good one that I don't need to train up. You can do things like having a collectible be destroyed for a different reward. So, basically you can do, for example, wagering, where people put up their collectibles and then they fight it out, and either the winner gets both, or, the loser gets destroyed. Or alternatively, let's say you can melt a flower down to get a whole bunch of different subcomponents that you can then use for various mechanics. And also stuff like renting. So you can actually have a collectible that you lend to somebody for a period of time for money, and then you can receive it back afterwards. These are all absolutely brand new mechanics that nobody's really played around with before in the collectible space, especially when it comes to provable ownership. Yeah, and so I welcome you guys to come check out our alpha product at https://flowerpatch.app/game. Feel free to email me, Andre@nugbase.com. I will give you a free flower to play with. Just send me your Ethereum address. Right now, we're still pretty early on. We're a small startup, but we welcome open source contributors. We're going to be open sourcing more and more of our code quite shortly here as we're ramping up production and promotions. We'd love to hear from you for literally any reason, feedback, concerns, kudos, anything like that. And really, really happy to be here. Really honored for this opportunity to come present for you guys. I love Berkeley. I love what it stands for. So this is just, really special for me. Peace and love.
Perfect. Yeah. Could you real quick tell us about customer adoption? You have a lot of users, right? That just kind of organically grew. Yeah. So we've been focusing very much on grassroots and sustainability, making sure that our profits are justified. So right now we're sitting at something like 700 or so users on our Discord, which are active. We have some similar numbers on our mailing lists. We're seeing about
1,500 unique users a month. And we're making revenue that's similar to about like $1 per user. So again, this is still pretty small. I'm talking about like $1,500 a month. But as the product scales up and as we get a lot more partnerships and game features rolled out, I suspect that will continue in a nice sort of organic way. From kind of a business perspective, like my beliefs are full transparency and full kind of like almost full open source, not quite, because I think you do need to keep a little bit of your tech proprietary for the, the competitive advantage and making sure somebody doesn't just completely, rip off your entire project from beginning to end. But yeah, I definitely believe also in a completely flat kind of business architecture. I think a lot of the time, like a lot of the infighting that happens in companies is as a result of like power imbalances and people kind of trying to climb the ladder.
Yeah, for sure.
Those are just my personal.
Yeah. Cool. We're gonna move forward into Nodle team. So anybody on Nodle team, just unmute yourselves and introduce yourselves. And whoever wants to pitch, just put up the slides.
Yep. So I'm Elliot Tessonnière. I'll be pitching today. I'm a chief blockchain architect at Nodle, and we make a decentralized network built by the people. I think Darren is here. If Darren, you want to introduce you quickly before I speak. So I can go ahead. So yeah, as I said, we are Nodle. We make a new kind of network to connect devices. We do that by using something that we call crowd connectivity, which is the idea of using crowd and people to connect devices, not just antennas made by, T-Mobile, AT&T, whatever. Essentially, we are already connecting millions of things every day, and we built that to be the internet that is going to connect trillions of things in the future. We focus on being more cost efficient than any existing solution, and to have security and privacy built in. And to do that, we basically convert what happens on the network in cryptographic facts, but I won't go into details today. If we can go to the next slide, maybe. So here is what we do in more details. The way we think about it is that we're an infrastructure. So essentially, we have a global network that is already touching every single country on the planet, except maybe like Alaska and Greenland. And on top of that, we can deploy services. So as of today, we have 3 kinds of services. We have one that focuses on what we call smart assets. So how can you make something intelligent? How can you connect it? We have a second service that is focusing on security certificates, and another one for insights that is very useful for smart cities, schools, or even just homes. Maybe we should switch to the next slide. And so what we are building is not just a network. We need that network to sustain itself. And to do that, we created the Nodle Cash ecosystem, which is an economy for that network, an economy that rewards people for building the network, and an economy where you have to pay in order to use the network. So we have that very particular circular economy system where you, as someone with a smartphone, can dedicate some capacity, some bandwidth from your subscription and win money as a way, for instance, to maybe pay a bit less at the end of the month for your T-Mobile subscription. While at the same time, other people are willing to buy what you've been allocated in order to use the network and connect their own devices. Yep, and maybe let's switch to the last one. So yeah, you have in the background a map of kind of what we see already today. We have approximately 20 million devices every day and see around 80 million things every day. We are pretty much live and running, so you can visit us on nodle.io, install our app, and start contributing and be rewarded on nodle.io/cash. Or you can simply shoot me an email, and I'll make sure to reply. My email is elliot@nodle.co.io.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Cool. We'll move on to StormX. So Simon, are you there?
Yes.
Cool. So we'll just do this verbally because I think, yeah, this one doesn't really need slides. There's been a lot of traction as of late. So do you just want to tell us real quick what StormX is, but more so what kind of traction you've seen very recently,
Yeah.
as well as how these students might get involved with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're a company called StormX. We're founded in 2014. We have currently 2 products live in market. First one was called Storm Play, where it's a microtask service where you can try out new apps, products, services. You can do small surveys where you get small rewards in cryptocurrency rewards. So that itself was pretty interesting to us, just because I have a personal background in terms of why I was so passionate about this project. So about 10 years ago, when I was in college, I had to drop out because my parents had a small business. Didn't do too well, so I was forced to, drop out and try to save tuition money and go work full time. But when you're working full time and trying to do online classes and stuff, it's pretty hard, just because I had to go to some finals. My boss wouldn't let me take my time off to go take finals because I can skip work, and it's very inflexible, right? And I think we're seeing that kind of trend right now with the COVID crisis, with retail employees trying to take work off, but it's really tough because they have a fixed schedule. And so my first job was in banking. I was an underwriter in middle market, and then I really saw the opportunity for Bitcoin back around like 2014, when transaction fees could be set for virtually zero. So, when we send wire to somebody in China or India or Korea, it costs you $35 plus the foreign transaction fee, and there's also an incoming wire fee, and there's it's very expensive to send money across, right? But what if you could do that for virtually zero? Even jobs that had a couple dollars or a couple cents where it didn't make sense because the transaction fee cost more than the actual transaction, would be impossible to send. So we started with this application where people were receiving small amounts of money, several dollars, and we saw there was a huge growth. And what if we could continue increasing the rewards that people could get and quantify the number of jobs out there for virtually anyone? If someone in Indonesia is looking for $1 a day just to live, that's completely fine. Or if somebody in Europe or the US wants to earn a living wage, that's fine as well. So we launched Storm Play with a microtask feature involved with small rewards. And then we just recently launched Storm Shop, which was a cashback service for when you shop online among different stores. So I actually have a demo I can show, or product I can show you guys. So it's very easy. If you guys have used like Rakuten or similar services where you earn cash back, so this is eBay, GameStop, Groupon. You basically just click eBay, you can get up to 6% back. And the reason we use crypto is because of the transaction fees, like I mentioned. So Rakuten or some of the traditional services that offer fiat like US dollars, it's very limiting just because it's so expensive to send money across different countries. And so they're only available in about 12 or 15 different countries, versus us, we can do about 187 different countries, no problem, just because our transaction fees are less than a penny to send out. And so it's a very interesting opportunity where even if it's a few dollars, we can send out. And as Luke mentioned, we've had some traction. So far we've had about $2.5 million users across 187 countries. And recently with the second launch of our product, we had about 40,000 users signing up in less than a month, which is about 2,000% growth from what we were seeing with the previous product. So it's a big opportunity for us, and our goal is to try to put more money into people's pockets. And I think especially with COVID right now, as people are staying indoors and looking for more remote opportunities, this is a better time for us than ever.
Perfect, cool. Tell us just one way that the students can get involved. Are you guys hiring? Are you guys doing any programs, events? Probably not anymore, but any demos, anything that the students can help you with or get involved with?
Yeah, so you can, first of all, try out our products. So, I mean, essentially, you're just getting cash back. Don't leave money on the table. Be sure to use our product and get some free money. We have eBay, Walmart, Target, pretty much 500 of the largest stores that are available in the market. Yeah, we do occasionally hire marketing or developer, whether it's interns or entry level as well. So be sure to check out our job posting. And we're always looking for feedback. You guys are the target demographic that we're looking for, millennial age group, between 18 to 34-year-old that really understands technology and sort of the first adopters, to get to mass adoption. I think we're going to need more feedback, and we're going to need to continue evolving so our grandmas can use it without having anyone explaining to them.
Perfect. Yeah.
Hey, Luke, so if I can interject with one question, I was wondering if I could ask the startups if they could each take a turn and talk about how the inherent aspects of their disruptive technology, be it blockchain, be it IoT, be it whatever fintech thing they're leveraging, how that allow them to, create a business that makes a social impact, right? So what is it about the technology that you guys are leveraging? What's unique about it that allows for that social impact, which you couldn't achieve with, standard off-the-shelf stuff from vendors, or older tech? What makes you unique in terms of social impact through leveraging your tech? Let's start with Snowball. Can you guys speak to that question a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, no problem. So the number one thing I would say that makes us unique, first I'll focus on the most important thing. The idea that banking could become decentralized or deregulated. Banking became deregulated already, 40 years ago. But there's a cycle of centralization, decentralization, distributed. And right now that's in a cycle of being decentralized. Finance globally with borderless payments is showing that, banks are trying to keep up. For us, what it does for us specifically is we're able to, be disruptive with a market that has been a big question mark for consumer trends. So millennials and, Gen Z are still like market researchers are trying to figure out how to sell them and how to figure them out, how to understand their patterns. For us, since we're able to leverage the fact that we're decentralized, we're able to disrupt a market that heavily depends on people wanting to have choice, and also being able to have freedom of choice. And when you have that and being able to aggregate the data anonymously, we can essentially be disruptive in the sense that we'll probably be one of the first aggregators to snatch all the, valuable insights from these generational trends that creates very, very valuable predictive patterns for us to do a number of things that would outpace any bank or any, legacy institution, not just in cryptocurrency, but in the way in which we built our technology is really to program dopamine and cortisol into the user experience, so where you feel rewarded when you see yourself earning money, and cortisol knowing you can actually withdraw and have something to show for your income or earnings. So I would say that's really our focus is in the cognitive science piece with generational wealth.
Wonderful.
Being a firm.
Very well put.
Just to close that off very quickly, portfolios are proprietary. We've coined a category, SCIA, or Smart Crypto Investment Automation, which makes us category king. And we're the first company that's offering risk-adjusted portfolios in crypto. And if you'd like to learn more, go to www.snowball.money.
Awesome. Okay, what about Flowerpatch? Can you guys chime in on the disruptive tech and what's unique and how that makes social impact possible?
Yeah, absolutely. And I kind of also want to a little bit, piggyback on what one of the Lucases was saying here just a second ago, which is really I think for a startup, decentralization is such a huge boon because it allows you to easily plug into all these different pieces that are available out there. So I kind of mentioned this a little bit in my talk, but previously, you didn't have an opportunity to plug into other games items and have them in your game. As Flowerpatch, we have the opportunity also to plug in DeFi, So for example, we're currently trying to work out some systems on how people can actually lock and earn money directly in our game as well, how we can offer rewards of that sort, because again, we have this incredible opportunity to do 5 to 10%, returns on investment now with lending. So yeah, definitely just like the open ecosystem, the network effect is so powerful. It allows all these pieces that were completely disconnected before to come together and start mutually benefiting each other, while also creating, again, a much fairer world where we have real ownership and people really control their own assets. I think that's incredible, and that's the majority reason why we're in the blockchain space.
Okay, wonderful, thank you. Do we have some more? Maybe people to chime in. Go ahead.
So for us, I think it allowed two things for us. The first one being that we can pay contributors in like India or even like in Russia without having to go through Stripe that does not support payments in those countries, or without having to pay high fees, which is one point. The second point was that actually enabled us to become more efficient in terms of security and privacy. So if you may not be familiar with the whole blockchain ecosystem, but if you'll know that cryptography, privacy, and security are big features of most blockchain networks. That most people will focus on the privacy and security of their users in that ecosystem. And so we are very proud to use similar technologies to achieve the same goals.
Thank you. Do we have the last team with maybe some comments to add?
Yeah, so for us, it's been really amazing just because we've had a lot of our traffic coming from emerging countries. So like even people from Nigeria and Southeast Asia have been using our application. And as I mentioned, when we first started our application, we were rewarding people a few cents and a few dollars. It doesn't mean much for people living in the States, but for certain parts of the country, it did mean a significant impact. And sort of piggybacking off of what Josh from Snowball Money was saying, was without a bank account, you can still have access to financial inclusion. And I think that was also a big opportunity for us, where we can really impact the billions of people out there without that access. And you don't have to have a secure infrastructure, because you can receive value very easily and fast and cheaply as well. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just more money for people around the world. It depends on where you live. But without those barriers, I think that's the big opportunity that we're creating.
Okay, great. And Luke, I did interject because I know that you had your own questions. This is Luke talking to Luke from a different mother. But I'm sure that you had queued up some things for the teams to maybe respond to and mix things up. And you might have your set of questions as well. And then we'll probably move over to the students if they want to ask the questions, right?
Yeah, totally. Actually, I would encourage students to just put questions into the comment section, or even to unmute yourselves. As soon as you have some burning curiosity, float it up. This whole class is for you. But there's just one thing I want to kick us all off with, is to all the entrepreneurs in the room. We used a lot of jargon and a lot of words to describe what we do, and that's necessary because blockchain is highly complicated. But also, I have to admit, when I first learned about this industry, I thought it was so boring. Blockchain is dense, it's complex, it's boring, it sounds fake. And every second I hear about some scam in cryptocurrencies, it's all speculative. And the tech too, it kind of echoes other black markets, gray markets, other emerging industries, frontier technologies. These things that are emerging kind of promise people, I'm gonna solve all the problems forever for everybody. But it's not true. There's no cure-all. And so, yes, blockchain cuts across all industries. There are ways to manage data, to manage agreements, to manage value, store value, exchange value in all societal systems, true. So blockchain is relevant, but we have philosophically this contention between centralization and decentralization. To quickly summarize that for the students here, what we're talking about is blockchain more or less espouses decentralization, because that is kind of power to the people, break up centers of power and of vulnerability that could either be hacked and corrupted, or that could be corrupted politically, right? So if you have a honeypot full of precious data, then one hacker can essentially ruin the whole system. Whereas, let's say if you're downloading movies illegally on torrenting sites, then peer-to-peer communication means you take down one, but not the whole. So philosophically, blockchain talks about this kind of thing. And if we look at the coronavirus situation, there's been responses by international institutions like the World Health Organization, responses by national governments like the Chinese Central Party, and responses by state governments like every single state in the US. So we have this situation where decentralization versus centralization is playing out in real life. Could each of you, the founders, just kind of weigh in on why blockchain would bring forth an age where we are decentralized, meaning power to the people, right? Meaning wealth is decentralized, meaning control of things decentralized, data and the vulnerability of data decentralized. Yeah, just in specific and in short, so that a 3-year-old can understand. I know it's a hard question.
I think I want to just like start off by saying, for example, one of the best things that I didn't have to do was manage user accounts. I think this is one place, just like, hear me out about this. Passwords can go away forever and we can have just such a dramatically more secure system. Imagine where every single laptop or phone has like a secure hardware wallet built into it. A hardware wallet, to briefly define it, it's a separate little computer that keeps a private and public key. So it's got like your credentials basically stored on it. And anytime that you want to basically prove your identity or sign a transaction, your computer would go talk to the hardware wallet, get that transaction signed, and then that goes back out into the real world. So your private key is never leaked. Now imagine this, every laptop, every phone in the world has this built in. That means that you go anywhere, you click on, log in. First of all, it knows who you are. You don't need to create any account. And then you're guaranteed that nobody can ever steal your user account or credentials without physically stealing your device. If we can re-architect the world, all of the login systems of the world to do that, nobody will ever get hacked again unless somebody like literally breaks into your house and steals your computer. Like, the level of security that we can gain here is so incredible, and all it takes is for us to agree on it and for hardware manufacturers to build these chips in. Like, that's literally it. We can solve that entire class of problems. Like, how amazing would that be?
Well, that's bold. Okay, that's a bold claim, but actually, like to other entrepreneurs, anybody can take this question. I'm wondering, why are our current systems so bad? As in, I look in my wallet and I see credit cards and financial institutions that back my money. I look at my data being managed by Google and these central parties. More or less, I've never been hacked and it's been fine. So I love blockchain. I know why this this has to be, but I don't know. Parul, Simon, Joshua, anybody in the team section, do you want to take this question? Why is it so important we change from our current status quo?
Okay. So I think it all comes down to trust. Trust is something that has humans innately are greedy and are subject to something called human error. And so trust typically happens 2 ways. Historically, this happens via regulations. But what blockchain is proposing is math. So trust is done via smart contracts. If we look at like the evolution of money, money has evolved since its inception. I'm just going to oversimplify it, right? We started with some sort of scarce resource. Let's just say it was like we had a bartering system. Here's my sheep for your bread. Then we all agreed that some sort of scarce resource had value. Here's gold, silver, platinum, etc. Then we took the gold and we put it in the bank and said, here's a paper money, a fiat currency, which represents this gold. Then we got rid of the gold and said, hey, this is a promissory note, which essentially is, it's trusted and protected by the government. Then what we did is went to, here's a check, which represents the money that I have in the bank, and here's Visa, PayPal, MasterCard, Venmo, etc. So money has been evolving since inception. The first question is, if there's a more efficient means for money to evolve, will it? Number 2, we're going through a major challenge right now with this pandemic with COVID. The government is printing out trillions of dollars. Now, what does that mean that for the US dollar, the US currency? What does this mean for the global currency? Typically, when money is being printed, I think the US dollar has inflated like 1,000% over the last 100 years. And so will the money have its value? And so this money, which exists on a peer-to-peer network, which is trusted by security and math, essentially with its scarcity and its finite, is essentially banking that humans will be corrupt or make challenges or have challenges on nation states. So if you think of like Venezuela, where the money went to zero overnight effectively, and this has happened, since the last 100 years, Russia, Angola, etc. Then people will trust another currency, which is not centralized, but it's created by math. It's created by a system, not a person that's flawed.
That's a great answer. Trust in code. Code is law. Yeah.
In math, we trust.
Yeah, strangely enough, if you look at the literature in terms of blockchain and cryptocurrency adoption, the 3 or 4 studies that I have found so far, one from the Federal Reserve in Boston, there was another study done in Canada, and then a third one is a think tank. Trust, strangely enough, doesn't appear as an adoption motivator. Okay, the 2 things that appear before it are cool tech. So obviously this is the early adopters. There's an MIT study there where every MIT student was given $100 worth of Bitcoin, every undergrad, at the beginning of the semester. And then the second one is speculative investments, right? While this issue of clawing back trust appeals to many of us philosophically, maybe particularly at Berkeley, it doesn't pipe up in studies of consumers and trying to see why they adopt or why they don't adopt. And also people tend to be lazy, right? The existing instruments work well enough, whether it's cash, credit cards, or PayPal, Venmo. So and it's a 2-sided network problem too, right? Because you have to have the merchants accepting it, and you have to have the people willing to go and play with it. So just an interesting side note on what researchers are reporting out there in terms of adoption, because I happen to be sort of personally interested in that. I think with time, and I think with the developments that we have right now with COVID, I think trust will become a bigger factor, because we're now seeing that with this crisis, priorities have been misplaced, right? Instead of spending money on healthcare and rewarding people who can save us, we were rewarding some guy throwing a football or a basketball somewhere. Not that I don't love March Madness and I don't miss it, but I think we'll see some shifting of priorities. Like Iklak Sidhu, the head of the Sutarja Center for Entrepreneurship Development, recently wrote in a blog post. There's going to be kind of a re-reckoning of our priorities, and trust might come up to the top a little bit more. Any other comments or ideas? Luke, do you want to throw it over to students, or did you have some more thoughts or more people to poll?
No, I think I'd encourage the students not to be shy. These are all entrepreneurs, like at the top of their game in hot phases of their careers. And so if ever you guys are trying to join a startup or become an entrepreneur yourself, you will experience the kinds of things they're experiencing now.
Yeah, and I also see that we have a VIP guest. Janaki had joined us from the Oval Office of the White House. So she's got the best virtual background, I think, of any students at the moment. Do you have a briefing for us on the state of blockchain or COVID, or do you have a question? Not to put you on the spot, but you got a wonderful background there. I think Jacob is flying in his F-18, so he's probably busy. We'll leave him alone. But Janaki might be ready for a briefing.
Not today.
No updates. Everybody's working hard in the Oval Office. It's all good.
Yeah, this is the Oval Office from back when Obama was president, actually.
Yeah. You're not going to berate any reporters or shout at any startups from that background? Excellent. Okay, we'll stop putting you on the spot. Which students have a question either in chat, or you're welcome to chime in person? You heard a lot of cool information from really truly revolutionary ideas presented here. Luke and Jocelyn have been working with them as part of the accelerator. This is the blockchain accelerator. I had the pleasure of helping a tiny bit at the very beginning when the blockchain accelerator was being formed, but they're certainly up and running with different enterprises. So you should definitely take the opportunity to ask questions and poll some of the startups here. Who wants to go? So, okay, there's one question from Hannah, okay, for any of the teams. Are there any women represented on the teams? Because there is a, gender diversity issue that we're dealing with here. And I think Parul mentioned that their CFO is a woman, and a badass one. Can you describe it in maybe slightly more particular terms?
Yes, yes. Pardon the elementary jargon, but one of the biggest challenges of our industry and this television show, which I'm on May 18th episode, I actually go in and talk about it, is the inequality for women in this industry of blockchain. I think the ratio is substantially heavily weighted towards men, right? I think it's like 3 women for every 50 men that are in the industry. So that creates an uneven weight. So how can we democratize this? Taking it one step further, the world is flat. And we have a global team now with COVID. Even local teams have gone remote. And so we've been able to leverage like this decentralization, and we have an office in Ukraine as well. And we hired Anna Oliver, who was formerly at Deloitte, Fractal Analytics. She's an incredible expert. But we found on a country level, a patriotic country like Ukraine, the wages are substantially weighted towards men. In a previous job that I had, I was VP at a software development company called Engineer.ai, and when we promoted the women, the men would call them sir in our specific office. And so how can we solve this problem? How can we even the playing field? So what we did specifically is we've promoted Anna multiple times based off of not only just her being in an underserved community, right, of being a woman, but based off of her actions. And despite, her lack of expertise as a former CFO, she's brought such tremendous value to the organization. She's created a movement for women who write Python code in the Ukraine office that we felt that not only was it right, but it has been substantially valuable for the organization to have her as a CFO and a leader in the organization. So I think we can all take our part by creating initiatives and programs that allow not just women, but underserved communities an opportunity to be part of this value chain where we're offering value.
Okay. And the president of blockchain at Berkeley is also female. She had lectured in this course earlier on as well. And Jocelyn had added, let's not forget about she256.org, right? Which is another organization addressing the diversity issue and blockchain in particular. Yeah, great question. Okay, let's see if there are more questions from students. I see some of them are slowly waking up. Squirming. Okay, remember, participation matters. Jacob, you look like you're ready to ask a question. You're done with your maneuvers?
I could ask a question, sure. I guess one question I have is just related to kind of outside of the blockchain space, but related to like investments in cryptocurrencies in general. And I guess I was just wondering, as you're all involved in the blockchain space, like how often, how do you think the adoption will take place involving blockchain, like separate from cryptocurrencies? Like when do you expect for like these two items to be decoupled from each other? Because generally I feel like Bitcoin kind of overshadows a lot of what we're trying to do in the blockchain space.
Yeah, indeed. What we see at Nodle, we do not focus on building a cryptocurrency. What we see is there's still a big misunderstanding from people. In most cases, when you mention blockchain, people think cryptocurrency. They don't think blockchain, they think currency, and I insist on that. And so that's partially due to the media actually focusing only on cryptocurrencies and not blockchain as a whole. It's also due to the ecosystem focusing heavily on that because as of today, is where the money is. In terms of adoption, more than understanding the difference. In terms of adoption, I had actually a good talk in December on the subject. I think we'll reach adoption when people will not realize that they use blockchain technologies. This will happen when you do not have to install a wallet and backup 12 words. This will happen when you do not have to go on a shady exchange and give them all your personal data to just buy coins, which is totally ridiculous. And this will happen when you stop having to wonder about like gas cost or transaction fees or whatever. And once we reach that maturity, then we'll be able to talk about usability and adoption. Until we do not solve those issues, I do not see how blockchain as a whole will be adopted by normal people or just people with no technical experience, younger or maybe older, but just want to play with something. And that's something that is still a bit sad in the ecosystem, which is that we have awesome technologies, we have awesome projects, but nobody is really tackling correctly the adoption problem. And so, there's still work to be done here.
I wanted to give a very brief shout out to projects like Portis and Fortmatic. So for example, with Fortmatic, you can create an Ethereum account just with like an email link, and there's no installation, no like setup. I agree that the on-ramp system is still very challenging, and I'd love to hear what other people's thoughts are about how to deal with that, because I think it is very hard to deal with it. But at least now in terms of the user experience, it can be as simple as like enter your email, non-custodial wallets created in the background, so you can start using it immediately. And that's been like, I think, a major step forward. Definitely just like usability, the UX experience. I want to say like, yeah, it should just completely fade into the background, make it seem like it's exactly the same, just using a website. People should care about what the tech does for them, not the tech itself.
Yeah. And on the mobile, you have a good application named Argent, which I'll tap in the chat, which is very good if anyone wants to get started with this kind of technologies.
So I've been writing on Forbes on this very topic. How do you find product market love? My co-author is the former chief digital officer of Forbes. We've posted a couple articles, so I've dealt very deep into this. The first question is like, who is your target audience? And so when you're building a product, most people think that you're going after the masses, but there's multiple quadrants. You have your innovators, that's your first 2.5%, right? Those are the Lukes of the world who are fascinated by technology. They're on the cutting edge. They may have a couple extra dollars of cash to invest or be an early adopter or a macro influencer. Then you have your innovators, your early adopters, 13.5%. And then you have the chasm, crossing the chasm until you go to early majority, late majority. And the way that I look at this is how do you find love? Right? In Silicon Valley, San Francisco, Bay Area, the school of thought for data science and engineering is very data driven, right? So the data scientist walks into a bar looking for love. It's, Monday at 5:14 p.m. goes into, the same bar, doesn't find love, goes the following Monday, wears the exact same clothes at 5:14 p.m., has a different hairstyle, right? Doesn't find love, goes the following Monday, changes the pant color. Okay, how do you find love? It's something that is emotional, but there's something that you can architect it as well. And so I think the psychology is, are you creating new real estate in your users' minds, your customers' minds, or are you hijacking existing real estate? And the challenge is today, when it comes to blockchain, fintech, cryptocurrency specifically, we're in the innovators, the first 2.5%. We haven't hit the early adopters or the early majority, late majority laggards. We haven't even crossed the chasm. We're effectively building the piping. And so the only way that this is going to happen is, one, a cataclysmic event, or two, we have some sort of incentive mechanisms which create virality. And so the way that's done is, most companies will go, there's 3 life cycle stages of customer adoption and finding product market fit. There's owned, there's earned, and there's purchased. So most companies go straight to purchase. They start buying Google ads, Facebook ads, paying influencers, going to conferences. And what you do is you create these sparks. And these sparks will create user coming in, and then they'll churn very quickly. And what you're trying to identify is who is your target customer. But you have to remember your target customer when you're starting the product is an innovator. It's not the early majority, late majority, the laggards. It's the innovator. So understanding that and going with your first 100 people is you get in front of them by being part of an incredible accelerator, blockchain Berkeley accelerator, and have the opportunity to connect deeply with the students, right? You speak to who your customers are going to be. They're your investors, they're your partners, they're your team, they're your friends and family. That's your first 100. Then after you have your first 100, that's your owned, you go to your earned. That's who your referrals are. Someone is looking for this problem to be solved, but they need an innovator to give them faith. That's your first 1,000 customers. Now, by the time you have your first 1,000, again, you're getting in front of them, you're speaking, you're building a personal relationship. You go to your purchased. Now, by this time, you have an idea, you have a fire burning, and you're putting gas on the fire. And I think that just in time, if you follow this basic methodology and understand the human psychology, the neuroscience behind adoption, that's going to be the core for the success in this industry.
Perfect. Actually, Josu, do you have a question? I think earlier you unmuted yourself and you wanted to ask something.
Sure, I put the question in the chat, but the question is for the Moneyball team. Like, I worked for a few years in like financial inclusion in Mexico, a country with a huge problem with the unbanked. More than 60% of the people are unbanked. So we looked into crypto as a solution for, especially for remittances. But what we saw, it was that both the cash in and the cash out were really expensive, especially for like undocumented people in the US that didn't have access to a bank account, and people receiving it here that didn't have a bank account either. So my question is, how are they dealing with this? Because it is true that there are many efficiencies to be gained from crypto, but those efficiencies get lost when like you have to pay 5% or 3% to cash in and another 3% to cash out. So how are they dealing with this?
Yeah, so I think the biggest problem is being able to do KYC AML in countries like not only Mexico, but global territories all around the world. I find that one of the easiest ways to do that, which is really one of the things I think a lot of people rely on now, is OTC desk. That's been a good alternative for the long haul, and that's where you have like local partners that are on the ground and they have like a KYC process and they're able to now obviously a OTC desk may not want to deal with someone for $100, right? So it's like, how do you deal with everyday people in a place like Mexico? And I believe that the first step is being able to really start with like advocacy. And that's really like the biggest thing I think right now that's happening in Mexico and other places is people are now choosing to use Bitcoin as an alternative. And when that happens, there's ways in which they can, you got to kind of bite the bullet, meaning like you have to kind of like pay the fees, unfortunately. And it's on like layer one solutions to reimburse users or to make it like a seamless experience. So like one thing we're doing at Snowball that we're looking at exploring is like gasless transactions or like redeeming some users that, do use our PSP, like, cause we understand, you have to pay a hefty amount, but you have access, right? And then once you have a cash balance, you don't have to, a stable coin balance, you can utilize us further. So I would say PSPs is the first gateway. And secondly, outside of that is like really partnering and really having a more advocacy mindset where you gamify that experience, like with either gasless transactions, if you're on Ethereum or Bitcoin, or secondly, more importantly, being able to like offer incentives for users to like really participate, like kind of like how StormX is doing. You get cash back for using StormX. That could be an amazing solution in Mexico, right? Because they would, who cares, right? Like I might pay 1-2 cents. There's ways to like incentivize people to use it. And then the last thing I want to touch on that's really, really important that regards to Latin America as a whole. I was in Puerto Rico earlier this year, and this isn't a problem in Puerto Rico, but it's a problem throughout Latin America. Like, how do people, utilize cryptocurrency? And to be frank, it's through people, right? Like, if I'm in America, like meaning if I'm Mexican and I have family in America, get it from your family. Get it from other people that you know. I think that's the quickest and fastest way. Meaning you can do peer-to-peer transactions with your people, right? Like with your close ones, if you have that access. I think that's a great way to like really do advocacy, because a lot of people, like I have family in Africa and I want to send them money. So instead of using Western Union, I use Bitcoin, right? And they don't have to pay any gas fees. I pay that for them. So sometimes it's on more mature markets to step in and really, like, if you know you have family in other markets, to, you know, be a resource. And that's kind of like where the bridges have to be built to really create leverage in this scenario. Really, it's like engaging family and friends of people that are, you know, on the ground in these countries.
I want to contribute to that and take a completely different angle on this. Well, one, changing money internationally is already inefficient if you do it in traditional ways. Like, for example, I was in Russia and Ukraine earlier this year. It cost me 30% to change my money from dollars to hryvnias or rubles through an ATM. If you do it at the airport, you know, you have similar fees. If you do it through a credit card, there could be fees. If you do it through your bank, there's fees depending on where you're going. So it's already inefficient. There's companies that are working, payment service providers. So when Josh means PSPs, he means payment service providers. There's a number of them working. The angle I want to take here is Moore's Law. If you think about the earlier topic of like the unbanked, 1.7 billion people of this world are unbanked. I'm extremely bullish about the technological innovation of global Wi-Fi. So there's a race to put the world online. You have SpaceX that's already launched a number of satellites, which will essentially give the world Wi-Fi. You have a company called Astronomus, which is based out of the Bay Area, extremely well funded. You have other local Wi-Fi solutions. So it's just a matter of time before the whole world is online. Not only that, but, you know, I'm sure you guys have heard the quote, you know, a kid in a developing nation, you know, 20 years with a smartphone has more computing power than the president of the United States of America did like 25 years ago, et cetera. And so what's going to happen with global Wi-Fi is there's going to be a lot of pressure for these smartphone providers to drastically decrease the price of these smartphones such that they're democratized and available for everyone. And what happens if, you know, one day you wake up and you're a Facebook user, which is billions of people around the world, and you wake up and your Facebook app becomes a wallet and it has a Libra token in it, right? What happens now? You can transact with your peers, and now you actually can apply for credit. You have an identity. You can get a loan off of it. You can start a business. And so what we're forecasting is in the future that the world will be online. It's not going to be competing for the market share of the people that are online, but we have billions of people who will be coming online. And this creates huge pressures for the payment service providers. If you look at the theory of free markets, the prices will only be driven down. I'm not fully convinced. There are substantial fees to convert fiat to crypto. There's no question about that. And they may be inefficient today, but I'm not fully convinced that they're substantially more inefficient than going through traditional measures, right? If you want to make international remittances, I want to send money to my family in India, there's a bank wire charge, there's middlemen charges. There's the cost of time and money where you're seeing transactions happen over various different blockchain networks for, you know, $100 million plus transactions executed for less than $1. And so, yes, the fiat to crypto problem is something that you can see. Like Circle has a token called USDC, and they just opened their API. It's on beta, but they're working on doing a fiat to crypto. I believe it's for free in 80 different countries. And so once we have an innovator, it's going to be a race, right? You see, when someone wins the Olympics for the fastest run that has, you know, in the history of mankind, the next year you have two people beating that exact same time. And so I'm really, really excited for the future there. And it's important for individuals such as yourself to bring these problems up because this is what inspires entrepreneurs like us to innovate in that direction.
Okay. I was just wondering if I could ask one more question. So one of the adoption barriers for cryptocurrency has been the scaling and the performance. Obviously, most people know that, you know, Visa can process thousands of transactions per second, and, you know, the blockchain architecture has been limited. A number of people have, you know, solutions cooking out there, but maybe for some of the CTOs and the startups, whomever wants to speak up, what do you think is the most promising solution for making, you know, cryptocurrency and the number of transactions that the real world needs, you know, actually scalable and usable, because it's still very challenging.
Not using the blockchain. This is not a joke, actually. What you see in many cases is that you have many projects that will put everything they can on the blockchain, and then they're going to complain that it does not work. Obviously, it does not work. The whole point is to use a blockchain to replace precise components that require too much trust on your infrastructure or other purposes. If it doesn't make sense to be on the blockchain, simply do not put it there. Like, you know, that does not really make sense. The same way that a bank will only update its records every few times. You know, it's not real time. So one of the solutions is actually what we call payment channels, which is to make most of the payments happen outside of the chain and then save one final state every few days or so, which works very well, especially for micropayments, and it's very good. Another one is to actually do parallelize, not use one chain, use many chains. If you really need or want to put everything on a blockchain or a lot of things, a solution which is very well known for people working with databases is to use many blockchain networks that are part of one big one, and then have the transactions execute in separate sub-network. For the technical term, it is what we call sharding. So we say that we shard the network. So we isolate the nodes in small shards, and every shard is dedicated to some kinds of transactions. It works also very well, but again, I think, you know, the real solution is to be smart about what we do, which is, you know, you definitely do not want to upload, I don't know, like why you will do that, but like you don't want to upload a PDF on a blockchain. I saw people doing it. It's like stupid. You know, blockchain is not a way to store things. It's a way to make things happen, a transaction, and that's all. And yeah, just parallelize what you can do, what you have. Another one would be also light clients. I know it does not really relate totally to your question, Luke, but with a light client, we can actually synchronize only a part of the network, which makes it very easy for people to then send transactions or to connect to the network from a mobile phone. Yeah, which is also a very interesting scalability solution, because I believe your question was mostly referring to scalability, and one of the main discussion is indeed the number of transactions of data that you can fit on a network. But you actually have more. You have also other discussions like why the hell do I need 2 terabytes of storage to connect to a network? You know, it's like yeah, it's not gonna work. Right. So that's why I was mentioning light clients, and you have many interesting initiatives on that side.
Okay, yeah, great perspective. I've heard of a number of these plays. Thank you for chiming in. Any other questions from students? Luke, did you have something to add? Students, anybody have anything? Raise your hand, type it into chat, or speak up, unmute yourself now.
Yeah, I have a question. This one is for StormX in particular, and it's not about your core crypto technology, but rather more about your platform. I was looking through your website and about how you're trying to revolutionize the gig economy, reimagine it. And I'm wondering, how do you prevent people from abusing your platform, like posting unethical things? I think it's understandable that larger companies might have like a developed system for how to prevent abuse, but I'm really curious that for a relatively like earlier stage startup, like how are you scaling?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very valid question, especially because rewarding payments. There's definitely a lot of bots trying to game the system, right? So even, I was an intern at Amazon, and one of the problems that they are facing is gift card hackers. Like people can try to guess the security code and just run scripts all day long and eventually get lucky and cash out Amazon gift cards. So even for larger companies, it's a problem that everyone faces. So we do have like data engineers, 2 guys that are working on looking at trends and different patterns that bots are trying to game. And then this is actually one of the future visions that we would like to see happen, is this whole decentralized aspect of it, right? So if there is a dispute, right? So if there's between two parties, if you've used like Upwork or Fiverr, there's two parties where one person is requesting a job and another person is doing the job, right? And one person might say, hey, you know, this guy didn't pay me. I did the service. What the heck? And then the other guy is saying, well, the quality was bad. Then you can get a third party, which is typically the company itself. If you were, you know, Airbnb, for example, Airbnb would come in and say, this, you know, this party is right over the other one, and they would dispute. But in this decentralized aspect of it, you create an incentive for a third party to come and validate it and be able to help you scale at an exponential rate, because you have all of these millions of workers that are willing to do that for some sort of payment as well. But we're still like, we're really far from that. I mean, that's just like a crazy, you know, vision blockchain stuff that a lot of people would love to see that happening towards. And then sort of going back to the previous question, Lucas was asking, you know, what blockchain seems most promising. And for us, we hit the wall in terms of scaling back in 2017. We were using Bitcoin. We couldn't scale anymore. So we pivoted to Ethereum. Same thing happened. And right now, the tech is just too early. So we ended up creating our own hybrid solution, sort of like in the internet days where everyone was using dial-up internet. Like, you know, to get connect with my friends, we would plug in a phone line and it would take forever to download a phone. And until DSL and cable came in, now all of a sudden it's a lot faster, it's more scalable, and sort of, but that took about 10 years to get adopted. So we're going to see this similar trend. Like a lot of the blockchain technologies started really getting evolved around like 2014 through, you know, now. And so if we're looking at another 5 to 10 years, we'll be seeing something completely different that will help us be able to reach that aspect in the future.
Yeah, thanks, Simon. Can I ask a follow-up to that?
Yeah.
So you talked about how to mitigate a certain type of abuse for like someone trying to game your system, but I'm wondering about like a different type of abuse where I might be posting a gig, I might be posting a task that's like go harm a certain person or go try to do really bad things to a particular group of people. How do you mitigate that type of abuse, and is like leveraging your core technology really the solution to that?
Yep. And yeah, it goes back to CL again. So there are companies like Open Bazaar where there's like already a decentralized marketplace. And if you look at how Facebook or Twitter or some of these platforms are currently battling against that, is, you know, people reporting spam or report, right? If there's enough of them, then it triggers an alarm and tells it to go figure it out. And then if it is really inappropriate, then you delete it. That's also where Silk Road got in trouble. I think they let people sell drugs and illicit activities there, but those are types of activities that you never want to allow people to do, right? So that there is a risk in terms of decentralization in that aspect. But you know, with network that is scalable, you can get to, in the future, this is definitely not possible right now. Ideally, where enough people will be able to report that right away and then get that post removed so there is no illicit activity going on.
So my question is like, what in the end will determine whether a post gets removed or not? Like, is it all in the hands of the decentralized system, or would you at some point interject? Like, what if one of your key customers is like ICE, or like someone that you and your group of founders might fundamentally disagree with? Where do you draw the line? And like, would you still feel happy developing a platform that's like fueling business for all of these entities that you think are, bottom line, unethical? Like, what would you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the point of decentralization that Luke Kim was really talking about, is, you know, giving power to the people is very interesting, right? And Facebook deals with this problem every day. You know, they're blocking political ads and things like that. And where do you draw the line? And it's a very tough question to ask, right? And so for us as a company, we don't want to break any laws and regulations, but to a certain degree, we don't want to also censor sort of information on there as well. So there has to be clear guidelines when you first set up those rules. Hey, you know, don't, you know, ask for murder, don't ask for, you know, any illegal activities on there. And then certain types of behaviors will be banned from that. But then also part of this is sort of like a big Reddit community, right? And I think that's where a lot of these guys are visioning where this technology, they would like to see it happening, is as they see new use cases, the rules evolve based on the feedback from the community themselves, right? So certain things that were okay, like, you know, maybe 30 minutes down the line, it could be not okay. But it's a very tough question, and you're very right. And if you have the answer to that, you should also, you know, follow what Facebook is doing and trying to see how they're trying to combat that every single day. They're getting a lot of heat from not just the government, but from the users itself.
Okay, wonderful. I think we have time for one more question. If a student has some input or maybe some closing comments from Luke and Jocelyn, if they wish to chime in. Let's see if a student has a question first. All right, I'll take that as a no. Luke and Jocelyn, do you want to close things for this segment? I think, you know, from my perspective, you know, first of all, what an amazing pool of talent that is here, right? Really enjoyed the inputs, the hearing about the new ideas. And by the way, for the students, this is your next phase, right? So as you're creating your startups here in the class, it's not all just for pretend. Many people from the class, from the challenge lab, proceed to the accelerator and get incubation, mentorship, and that sort of advice, and eventually get exposed to angels, VCs. They get funding and make it real. I'm not going to tell you to drop out of college, but this is certainly a path that many have taken before. We have some unicorns, as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, which came out of this, you know, format and the Berkeley entrepreneurship method. So, you know, I'm not going to talk too much about the class because I'm the instructor, but I can tell you that the accelerator works for sure. So Jocelyn and Luke, any closing comments?
Yeah, just one thing. If anybody wants to get involved with blockchain industry, blockchain at Berkeley or Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology, then let me know. I used to be a student a long time ago at Cal, but it was still at a time when the CET was moving and shaking. So I believe in paying it forward. I was right where you're sitting, and it took many countries and many different ventures, but it seems like now, yeah, I can open up some gates for you to get employment and also upskill yourselves. Jocelyn?
Yeah, so I just want to thank the teams that joined us today. And the reason we have 18 teams in the accelerator for this spring batch. And we had 27 teams that went through the accelerator last year. We have 18 new teams for this year. And we had many applications. These are the 18 that stood out. And we invited this set of 4 to come and join you today in class because their applications are live pretty much. And you can start using these today. So you can actually see what's being deployed out there in the industry. And I think if you're in the class and trying to envision, like, how is this actually taking place in the world? These are some great examples for you. And I will add on what Luke Kowalski said. We have had teams come out of this Challenge Lab course that have went on to join the accelerator. One was RIP Chain, which Rest in Peace Chain, putting wills and trusts on the blockchain. And they are still continuing on. They did really well in the accelerator last fall. And we have a team from last fall that's in the accelerator called Calypso that's reimagining how debt is financed and creating a reverse auction marketplace for loans. So some really great teams have come out of the Challenge Lab. So I encourage you all to take the lessons from today, and good luck with the rest of your project developments in the weeks ahead. And I will be there on the final present day and look forward to hearing your pitches.
Thank you very much, Jocelyn. Thank you, Luke. And let's continue the tradition. Let's have a team from this semester join the accelerator. Let's do 3 for 3. So it would be wonderful. Okay, well, thank you very much for the startups. Really appreciate you joining.